This is the CHRILLCAST Live. I am Chris.
I am Andrew.
And I'm Will.
And I'm Nadia from Bugs on Wheels.
And before we get into this podcast about bugs, let's have her talk about the Bugs on Wheels experience.
Okay, so I started Bugs on Wheels August of last year, so still pretty new here. But the idea was definitely born out of a passion. I'm 32 years old right now, but as a kid, I loved bugs. I would collect all the jars that my mom would give me, poke holes in the top, and just go around the yard collecting as many bugs as I could and catch food for them and make sure I give them water. And I would get books from the library and use time to, go online and do online website researches and just learn as much as I could because I just had this intense interest even at a young age. And as I got older, I realized it was more than just an interest that some kids have. I really genuinely had a passion for it. Didn't think I could really do anything with it though. So I didn't really go to school for it. I just constantly studied, constantly fed that passion. And fast forward to now, I'm married. I have 4 kids and I've mostly been a stay-at-home mom, but last year I kind of just got to a point where I'm like, I want to do something for me. Not just for me to help also financially, but I really just want to do something that I enjoy doing, that I'm passionate about. So I started thinking about the things that I loved doing and bugs came to mind and I'm like, well, what can I do with that? And I don't know where it came from. It just kind of, the idea, the concept of this business came to mind. What if I got a bunch of exotic type creatures? People do stuff with lizards and snakes and things like that, but I'd never heard of anyone in this area anyway doing it with bugs. And so I kind of came up with the idea, mentioned it to my husband. He was very supportive, very much on board. And he's like, yeah, go for it. And I said, okay, this means that we have to have all these creatures in our house, right? Like, are you okay with that? And he was, yeah, like, I'm all about it. Okay. And so I said, okay. And 2 weeks from that date, I had a website launched. I had social media launched. Like I had all the things. I had bugs arriving at the house. And my husband was good with all of it until all the containers started showing up on his nightstand and all over the bathroom counter and all that. And he's like, okay, I need to make a shelf for you. And so got a bug shelf that I just kind of keep everything on. And it's been over a year of learning and just meeting a lot of people and being able to share how amazing and awesome these creatures can be. I really feel like the people who have their fears about bugs, I really feel like a lot of times it's because they misunderstand them or they were given misinformation about them and they don't understand how important that they can be and that they're really not so scary. So my goal is kind of to educate people and give them that hands-on experience. So, they don't see a tarantula and automatically think like, oh my gosh, this thing is going to like bite me and kill me. Or, just kind of change their mindset in general because these bugs outnumber us an insane amount. And without them, our ecosystem would be in much worse of a shape than it is right now because of all the positive things that so many bugs do. So, I've just been able to kind of live out my passion and go different places. I do a lot of birthday parties. I go to schools, libraries. I have been able to go to the Macomb County Juvenile Justice System a couple times. That was a great experience. I've gone to churches, all kinds of things. So there's really not a limit to places that I'll go or things I'll do. It's just, I just really want to get the word out there more. I'm obviously just a small business starting off small, but the more that people find out about it, the more they're interested. And that's just kind of my goal, to get out there and let people know about how amazing they can be and give them that experience.
Yeah, it was really cool. Because actually, long story short, this podcast came into mindset because we saw her at a library from where my kids happened to be at, and she did a great job educating them on the bugs. Nobody was terrified of the tarantula, which was good. There's a few a little squeamish, but mostly the adults, not the kids.
That's usually the case. I'm like, okay, are any kids nervous? And usually adults' hands go up. I'm like,
yeah, that's usually how it goes. Yeah, so like when I was working at the aquarium, we had a tarantula that we would
it was like a rose hair tarantula. So you can actually pick it up and like pass it around. And some people would shake so bad you can see it shaking in their hand, and those ones made me so nervous. I'd be like, "All right, I'm gonna go ahead and take that back now," because the tarantulas, obviously is the old saying that they're more scared of you than you are of them. So shaking them is not the best.
Yeah, no, it's not. The Chilean rose hair was actually the first species of tarantula I ever had as a pet. I had my first one when I was 14. My grandma was actually a grade school teacher. She taught 3rd and 4th grade, and she had a rose hair tarantula and frogs and all kinds of other pets in her class. And I just thought her tarantula was so cool. And I'm like, Mom, Dad, can I have a tarantula? And my mom's like, sure, if you keep it outside. And I'm like, no, we live in Michigan. It's gonna die in the winter. She's like, well, then you can't have one. So my grandma finally convinced her to let me have one, and it was a Chilean rose hair. So that one, that was a special one for me for sure.
I don't think I'd ever want one in my house. I'd be too scared to get out one day, and then like you have to think, oh, it's going to be on my face in the middle of the night.
Well, I mean, if it did, more than likely it would go to a place where it could hide instead of crawl
in my mouth.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Do you sleep with your mouth open or closed?
I don't know. I'm asleep.
So here's like a question that I have to ask. You've had all these creatures in your house now, and I asked this earlier, but we're going to ask it again.
Yeah.
How many have escaped, and what was the worst one?
So I had some babies one time that kind of escaped through the cracks. Oh, I have a really good one. Okay, I've got a couple of them. So, all right. So the one I told you before was my centipede. I had my centipede. Now that one is a looking only bug. Now, when I do my bug shows, there are looking pets, there are touching pets, and there are holding ones. This one is a looking only because they are venomous, and it's very strong venom. Yes. And they're the big giant ones, not the little house ones, the big ones. Yep. So
they hurt too, like really bad when they bite you.
Yes, they like to dig a lot. So when I was first doing my bug shows, it was very hard to see them, and I was kind of too nervous to dig them out. And so I would kind of, before going to shows, I would transfer them to a different container that didn't have dirt in it so people could see. Well, one time, and I never had any issues with the transfers, but one time I came home late. I was just tired. I just wasn't paying attention as much, wasn't being as careful. It was really late. And I go to transfer it, and as I'm like putting it in a different container, it almost kind of like tried to lunge at me, like towards me.
Yeah.
And of course I immediately drop the container and scooch back because I do not want to get bit by one of these things. If you guys have ever watched Kings of Pain, where they let themselves get bit by things, like this centipede was one of the highest on their list. So anyways, he's on the floor, and these things are super fast. And so I don't want to lose him, but I also don't want to hurt him. So I take the container, put it over top of him upside down, but I was on carpet. And so I'm pushing down, and he just went right underneath, and got like through the carpet. So I kept kind of, as he's moving, I'm cupping him like that. And, eventually I got him, but that was really nerve wracking. It was not good. Eventually we got him, but I feel more comfortable now with that species in particular, and I don't transfer him anymore. I just bring him in the cage that he's in, and I'll kind of just lightly dig him out a little bit, and he's fine. I've never had any issues, but yeah, I definitely don't want to be bit by one of those guys. So
you mentioned that pain index, the Schmidt pain index. Actually, the guy who invented that, or like the guy who allowed himself to get stung initially, created this random index. I actually roomed with him at a conference, and I had no idea who it was.
And then he just
started going on these stories about like the velvet ant is one of the worst, and he's like talking about how he like let bite his tongue, and man,
why?
I have one of those too. I bring a velvet ant with me.
So I did not realize that a velvet ant was actually a type of wasp. And when I was doing my field research, I was picking them up because like, oh, these are so colorful. And I would actually pick them up and I put them like in my little collection vials. And then my advisor finally told me, "You do realize like that will sting you, right? And those are one of the worst things you can get.
Yep, they're pretty bad. It's kind of interesting. So they're also known, they're called another name. They're called cow killers.
Okay.
And I don't know why cow was the chosen animal, but they say, oh, the sting is so powerful that if it stings a cow, it could kill it. So it's also called a cow killer. So I had 2 shows today, and I went to a birthday party, and there's this little 5-year-old that goes, oh, is that a cow killer? And all these parents are like, what is she bringing into their house? I'm like, yes, it is. This is just going to be a looking bug.
And you'd be like, oh, there used to be 3 in here. Now there's only 2.
Yeah, exactly. My husband said I should do that. He's like, you should take a container that looks all set up, but put nothing in it, and then just act like you're trying to find it. And it's like, oh my word, it's not here. So I got to do that sometime.
Have a whole display with like the spiders from Spider-Man. It's like, oh, the scientist must be working with that one today.
Yeah, like this one's really, really deadly. I mean, if you get bit by this thing, you're a goner, and then you just can't find it. That would be good.
Just mess with it. There used to be a killer hornet in here. I don't know where it is. What is it? Was that the Japanese one that came over last couple years ago? Or murder hornets, whatever they were called.
Yeah.
Aren't they more so a murder hornet though, because they really just destroy beehives?
Yeah, I think that's why they're called murder. I could be wrong about that.
They are huge, so they're very scary looking. But...
They're pretty big. Yeah, they're pretty big.
We have a comment for you.
Yeah.
I can think of a couple times crickets were loose in Nadia's house.
Yes, there have been the occasional crickets that will get loose in the house, and those are the feeder crickets. So sometimes I'll pick one up to go put one in a tarantula cage or something, and sometimes they'll escape from me, and usually I can catch them, but sometimes they hop under a dresser or something, and I'm like, you know what, it's a cricket, I don't care, whatever. And it's not a big deal until it ends up chirping in the middle of the night, and then I can't sleep. I'm like, oh no.
It soothes you to sleep, puts you to sleep.
I get them in my garage all the time, and they're like the really big crickets.
It's good luck to have a cricket in your house. Did you know this?
So I grew up in the country, and I would always have my windows open, and I could hear the cicadas and crickets and frogs, and that it used to be like really soothing to me growing up. But the last 10, 12 years I've lived in the city, and you don't really hear it. And so now just one single cricket chirping is like, no, I can't do that. No.
I think here's a really quick question. We'll jump into one more here before we get into some more information. This person's a new subscriber to our channel. I think probably from when we interviewed Abdi. So I think bugs are cool, but I can't stand roaches. Do you work with those too?
Yeah, I do. So I have 4 species of roaches right now. I've got Madagascar hissing cockroaches.
Those are fun.
Yeah, I have domino roaches. I just recently got some giant cave roaches. And then I also have extinct in the wild roaches.
Oh,
so yeah, those domino
dominoes.
roaches, yeah, those are super popular ones. A lot of people think they're beetles. And out of all the bugs I've worked with, I have never been a huge roach person, like personally, until I saw those domino roaches. They just have these little personalities, and it's almost like they play tag in their container, and they chase each other around all the time. And I don't know, I think it's kind of cute.
Have you ever had a death's head roach?
I have not. No, I haven't kept that species yet.
Okay.
So it's with what I do, I've realized that if I keep too many of one thing, a lot of times you don't really have enough time to show everything. So what I'm starting to do, in case there's like a bad molt, or if a bug dies or something like that, I have multiple options to choose from. So with the hissing roaches, for example, I've realized have been really touched out. So when you touch a hissing roach, they'll hiss, and there's usually several reasons why they'll do that. Well, these guys that I've had have been so used to being touched, they don't hiss as much anymore. So I have started to kind of take different roaches with me and kind of alternate them. So, but yeah, I do work with them, and that's the one bug that almost without fail, someone is going to say, ew, when I say that I bring a cockroach out, because
they're very, very clean though.
Yeah, they are. They're very clean. They get such a bad name, which is kind of sad, because they're super important to our ecosystem. And I try to let people know that when I go to shows. But yeah, they definitely get a bad name. That's a bummer.
If anything, from what I understand about roaches, if you have roaches, it means that something's probably not clean that they're cleaning up for you.
Right, exactly. So really, the gross one is not the roach.
It's the house that's
It's
not.
you, yeah. Like most things,
Yeah.
people are nastier. Yeah.
Yeah, you need to clean your house up better because then they won't go looking in your house eating food. And I mean, basically anything. I mean, they eat so many different things. It's not just food. So, you know, the thing that I do when I explain this to kids is I'll tell them they're super important. I'll say, everybody has garbage in their house, right? And they'll all say, yeah. I'm like, okay, your mom and dad take the trash out every week, right? And they're like, yeah. And I say, okay, who comes to take care of that trash every week? Oh, the garbage men do. And it's like, okay. So cockroaches are kind of like the garbage men of the insect world. They're going to touch and eat all these things that other insects and other creatures don't want to. So it seems kind of gross, but without them, you know, our ecosystem wouldn't work the way that it does. And so they do play a very important role.
So we are a very gaming centric channel. I want to kind of move into this a little bit. There's two things I want to go over. One, the first thing, I know I sent you this list of the creatures of Grounded. We're going to get into that later. I'm going to put that up on the
Creatures of what?
Grounded, the game Grounded.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So we'll talk about that later. I've got some ideas for that one. But we talked about Pokemon off air before we got started. Was the love of bugs first or the love of Pokemon first as a kid?
Definitely bugs. It was definitely bugs.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
you mentioned capturing and like storing the insects in your house. I used to, obviously every kid would collect fireflies, but I used to try to raise grasshoppers, and but like to the life of me, I could never get them to last like more than a week. So I always felt bad, but it was always fun going out and collecting more and putting them in this shoebox, having the grass in there, make like a whole little like aquarium or terrarium for them.
Yeah. You're right. A lot of kids, I feel like a lot of kids kind of are into that, and then they slowly, like as they get older, you know, as kids, there's so many things that you're curious about and you don't really have fears yet. So I'll go to shows and all these kids want to touch and hold everything. And they're curious. And it's the adults who are scared, right? Because life has taught them, or people have taught, where they've read all these things. Oh, these are the reasons why I should be afraid. This is the reason why I should be scared. And then they change their mind about it. And I kind of want to be like, no, like you can go back to that, that almost childlikeness that you had. Like, yes, you need to respect them, but they're still just as cool, you know?
Agreed.
Did you ever have a ant farm?
I did. I had an ant farm at one point. I think I may have had two different ones, but yeah, that was a super fascinating thing. All the bug things, I had them all at one point.
Yeah, like I think ants are the most fascinating just based on their almost societal human-like characteristics in that regard.
Oldest farmers in the animal kingdom.
Yep.
Yeah, if I could make it possible, which it would be a little bit difficult, or at least expensive anyway. I think it would be so cool to have a colony of leafcutter ants.
Yes.
So cool. I think it's the Toledo Zoo. They have like a little kid section, and in there they've got, the beehives inside the house with the glass that you can see, and they've got a whole thing of leafcutter ants too. And it's so interesting to watch.
Yeah, the St. Louis Zoo does as well, where they have like actual like branches that go around that you can see them walking across and march across the leaves into their into their colony. It's very cool. Unfortunately, most kids see that now. They run right by it. It's amazing to me.
Yeah. It's not a video game or something they can look at a screen. That's not.
There's also no one there to explain it to them, so they just kind of see it for a second and they're like, all right.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
These are usually the ants that like you think of when you think of ants in the jungle, right? The ones that do the leafcutter ants.
Yep. Yep.
Are these also the ones that suffer from that awful fungi that takes over the you know what I'm talking about?
Basically every insect has that. The cordyceps.
The cordyceps, yeah.
The inspiration for The Last of Us.
Yeah, it's kind of an oddball thing that they use that as their inspiration to create a zombie.
It's cool though.
Apocalypse
what it
game,
does to the insects, so I can see why it inspired that game.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean that was the most unique form of zombie that I think any game has tried. So
I give them credit for doing it that way instead of like the traditional, get bit by some random dead creature, turn into zombie, whatever. So as far as Pokemon go, I know Andrew asked this off air, but I'll ask it now. Did you specifically stick to the bug types, or did you have ones that you liked, or just you were more utilitarian and picked the ones that are the best?
Yeah, I picked the ones that were best. I had to have at least one of all the bug Pokemon because obviously they were bugs. But I mean, realistically, you know, the bug types are not really that strong. So, you know, I would keep them and I would always, you know, evolve each of them to all their stages. But I rarely use them in battles. So.
You mentioned as a kid you would go collect the bugs and everything. Was that just bugs, or did you also go for the frogs and everything else?
Oh yeah, I went for frogs and, you know, all the creatures and just anything that my mom would let me have. And I've raised baby bunnies before, baby birds, you know, the formula in the syringe, like all of the things. But it was just I don't know, there was just always something about bugs. And I remember my mom just being like, I just don't understand why bugs. Like, why aren't you obsessed with puppies or kittens, or why does it have to be tarantulas? I don't know. Someone's got to love the things that most people don't like, you know. So that was.
What was your favorite Pokemon then?
Oh gosh, it's been so long. I don't remember what my favorite one was. I remember, though, that I was obsessed with getting a Mew because my brother couldn't get one. It was the one Pokemon that he tried to get. It was like a Mew or a Mewtwo. I don't remember which one. And that was, he had all the Pokemon, all of them except for that one. So all I remember specifically is constantly trying to get one of those just so I could one-up him. And he was like 8 years older than me. So I had to get one before him. I didn't end up doing it, but I just remember that being like my ultimate goal.
To be fair, almost no kids got a Mew legitimately. Like, I guess the only way to really get one was going to the Pokemon Center in New York and like getting some special connection, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah, he may have even done it that way and just never told me, because then I was like, you cheated.
Because you can glitch it into the game. They figured it out years later, but originally the Nintendo company like stopped people from getting that. Like, you got to go to New York and plug it into this Pokemon Center thing. Yeah, it was basically all promotional.
I've actually been in the Nintendo store in New York City.
I've never been there.
Did you guys ever get into the whole Pokemon Go thing when it came out?
For a minute. Not very
I did
long.
for a second, but so I was doing my research in St. Louis at the time, and you know, there's a bunch of urban parks, and I'd be like in the thick. It's like you think of urban park, you probably think of maybe like Central Park, but these are like really big parks in St. Louis, and I'd be in the woods, you know, collecting my insects or recording sounds or something, and then all of a sudden this whole group of kids just start come traipsing through and looking for Pokemon, and it's like, what the heck are you doing out here? And then like they see this weird guy kneeling down by a bush.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
What you doing?
Well, there were several times the rangers would come and stop me and be like, "What are you doing out here?"
The Pokemon Go thing, though, drove me insane because when it came out, I was in the middle of the country, very rural setting, and no Pokemon existed. If it was rural, it was like literally based on human population, which made it the dumbest thing on the like. I got very disillusioned with it because like I can't go walk on a hike or something and actually find Pokemon over here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I did it for a little while, and then it just kind of became old. And I think kind of similar to what you had mentioned, honestly, there were so many people, a lot of younger kids, that you could just tell what they were doing in groups everywhere all the time. And when I wasn't playing, I was so annoyed with them for doing that. And I'm like, I don't want to be one of these people. So,
yeah.
But my husband will still play sometimes, though. We'll be at the mall, letting our 4 kids run around, and he's all into his phone. I'm like, what are you doing? And I lean over, and he's catching Pokemon. And I'm like,
my coworkers still play, and like they'll actually, I've had a coworker leave a meeting before because there was like a Pikachu with a hat or something in the parking lot. And it's like, this is really unprofessional, people.
I believe it.
You're on a meeting and they all whip out their phones. There's Mewtwo on the middle of the table.
Yeah, well, so we had some Dutch in this week, and he actually does geocaching, which is kind of similar. And he was like walking around like the town. He's more interested in geocaching than actually doing what he was supposed to be doing here. So
geocaching is really cool. Like my my husband and I used to do it before we had kids, and we take them on nature trails all the time, and there's usually geocaches there. And so it's like, okay, you guys want to look for some treasure today? It's like, yeah, let's go find some treasure. And it's kind of a fun thing for them. So, and then whenever we go back to that trail again, they remember where it was, and they want to go back and see if it's still there and see if there's anything new. And
that's cool.
So it's fun. Yeah.
The ones that he was doing actually like apparently had puzzles. So he would go and find a box, and there'd be like a puzzle inside the box that he had to undo to actually get the prize or whatever.
Yeah. I think there are different levels. I think it's geocaching is free, but I think there's a different level that you pay for ones like that where it's a little bit more intense and involved. So
when I think of Pokemon Go, I always think of the people that did stupid things while playing it, like people that fell into lakes or into the ocean. Those are always my favorite stupid stories.
Yeah,
I hope everybody was okay, but that's what I always thought of.
I mean, do you, Chris?
I just remembered there was a really bad instance where everyone was trying to catch a Snorlax somewhere, and it caused a bunch of traffic issues.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
I just remember that.
Like real life Snorlax problems.
Yeah.
Here's a good question. How many bugs do you have? Not including the food crickets, you know.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking all of them, I mean, of one species of roach, I have like 15 of them. So like if we're talking total, I don't know, if I had to guess, probably around 100. Maybe a little bit more than that. But yeah, I have more roaches than anything, and then I've got a decent amount of beetles, but probably around 100. I
have to ask, do you have any amylopidgids?
Do I have any what?
The tailless whip scorpions.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I did. So I bought one actually about a month ago at an exotic pet show. And so I go, and this woman has these big, full grown, like these giant Tanzanian ones for only $20, which is a steal.
Yeah, it is.
Oh my word. So I asked her, I was going to buy one. And she looked kind of flustered and frustrated when she was looking at her little containers that she had in. And 2 of them that she was going to give me were dead in their containers.
Oh, man. Okay.
And so I was like, okay. So then she found one that was alive, and it was fine. And I'm like, okay. And then I also asked her what she was doing with the other 2 that had died. She was like, well, I'm just going to toss them. And I said, well, I do taxidermy. Like, can I have them? I'll pay for the specimens themselves. She just gave them to me for free. But so I got this one, but it died like a week later. And the only thing I can assume is that based on the condition of the other 2 that she had, it was not kept very well.
Already on its way out.
Yes, exactly. And I was so bummed too, because again, the deal that I could have gotten on that. So I'm wondering, I don't know, I wish I had taken her information, because I kind of wanted to talk to her about it and just see if she needed any help trying to figure out how to take care of them, because they just weren't in great condition.
Yeah, no, they're notoriously hard to take care of in captivity.
Yeah.
Do you have any vinegaroons, out of curiosity?
No, I have not. I had one person that was supposed to give me one. I was going to buy it off of them, and then they just decided to give it to somebody else.
Bastard.
Yeah, it's like sometimes it can be kind of intense. And then I'm very aware of some people like massively raising the prices for stuff too. And I just, I have to kind of pick and choose what I'm going to do, especially, like I said, with the time constraints that I have. I can't have all the things. So I just don't have the time.
You can't have everything? What?
I mean, I could. Well, so my husband puts it like this. Whenever I get a new bug, he's like, okay, is this for your business or is this for you? Because, we already have 4 kids to take care of, plus all the bugs. And he's like, if you're getting all of these for you that you're spending time on, and you're not using them in presentations, like, why are we doing this? So, but it's definitely a fun, it's a fun hobby for sure.
I swear the commenters are writing this interview for us. This works great for what we just said here. Nadia, which bug is your most high maintenance?
Most high maintenance. I'm gonna look at them for a second and think about this. Probably the millipedes. The millipedes are their substrate has to be just the right way. You have to make sure that they have calcium in their diet. The temperature has to be just the right way, the humidity. So I would say that for me, that's definitely probably one of the most difficult. So tarantulas for me are pretty easy. I just feel like they're easier in general. They're not as picky. Stick bugs can be difficult too. They're very sensitive to temperature. So in the winter, I have to make sure that, you know, temperatures don't really affect them in a negative way, because they're used to, the ones I keep are used to more tropical areas. So probably stick bugs and millipedes, I would say, just because of their environment more than anything.
Have you ever thought about getting into beekeeping?
Yes, I have. When like I said before, I grew up in the country. We had 4 acres, you know, soybean fields surrounding us, and it was just the perfect spot. And I begged my parents to let me have one, and they're like, no. And the places that I've lived as an adult just don't allow for me to have one right now. And so eventually, when I get in a good spot where I can do that, that is definitely something that I plan on doing.
Yeah, beekeeping has like so many benefits. Like the honey you get from beekeeping is amazing.
Yes. I definitely, that's on my bucket list for sure.
Get the full beekeeper get up and everything.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, you don't have to do it though. If you know, you don't have to have the beekeeper suit if you really know what you're doing though, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Well,
I've actually looked into it.
Oh, sorry guys, go on.
I was just saying, I've actually looked into it before. It's actually not that crazy of a price tag to start a beekeeping operation.
yeah,
that would be
one.
Behind chickens. That'd probably be my second most likely thing I would do, because I've already got the chickens.
Oh, chickens. Oh, we had those when I was growing up too. We had egg layers. We had meat chickens, over 100 at a time. And I would help my dad butcher them until he finally took them to a butcher. And I was also the one who, with the egg layers, it was my job to feed them, water them, and collect the eggs every day. So
they're not that hard, like maintenance wise, but they are very dirty. They can get very dirty.
The meat chickens, they're super lazy. They literally just live to eat and get as fat as they can. Like, that's just all they do. And the layers weren't too bad though. We only had, I think at the most we had 14, and that wasn't too bad. So
I've had over 100 layers before. And I was actually gonna, Chris, you've never had ducks. You don't know what messy is.
Well, I believe ducks are way worse. I've heard that too.
Oh yeah, man. I have too. Yeah.
Ducks are disgusting.
They lay really big eggs though.
They're cute but disgusting, and the eggs are too rich for me. I've tried to get into.
Dude, no, you have to use the eggs in baking. Like if you make a cheesecake with duck eggs, so much better.
Okay.
What would the ratios of that be though? Like, say, one duck egg, how many chicken eggs worth is that?
Andrew's like, I just do 1 to 1.
You know, I just. My wife made it with duck eggs once because I bought those, and that cheesecake was like 1,000 times better than the standard one. So
very interesting. Huh. Yeah. I would think that one duck egg would be maybe 2 or 3 chicken egg sizes. I don't know.
Depends on
the eggs
chicken.
My chickens are laying are like duck egg size, like small duck egg size, but big chicken eggs. That's for sure.
Yeah, they'd have to be laying for a little while at first, because when they start, they're a little bit smaller for sure.
Now, the one thing I've learned, maybe this is something that you can talk to about the bugs, but I learned introducing new chickens to a current flock of, or whatever you call a peck of whatever chickens, whatever they're called. They get mean, really, really mean to new chickens. Like I had several times where like all the feathers would be plucked from the back of the new chickens' heads. And I'm like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
So as far as like putting bugs in the same container, I know you do that with a few. Like,
it's Bug Fight Club.
How difficult is it, or is there just plenty of information out there for you to decide which bugs to put in the same containers?
Well, it really depends on what kind of bug we're talking about. Like tarantulas, for the most part, you should not be keeping them in the same container. There's one species, a Balfouri species, which is a really popular one, where I forget the name of the Instagram handle that I follow, but he's got I think it's like the biggest tarantula enclosure in the world, and he's got literally hundreds of Balfouri tarantulas together. And it's so interesting to watch when he drops food in there. They all just converge, and they're fine. They're communal, and it's not a big deal. But most of them you can't keep together because they will kill each other. Millipedes, for the most part, like I do keep 2 species of those together. It's a big enough container. They don't bother each other. It's fine. Certain roach species you can, but ultimately, it's kind of just better to keep different species of certain bugs apart, because otherwise they will start to get a little bit defensive. I would say like scorpions, I wouldn't keep them together. But I mean, roaches, you can keep the same species of them together pretty much. I think pretty much any species you can keep them together and they'll be fine. But if they're super happy, keep them warm enough, they will reproduce very quickly. My hissing roaches, I've had so many gravid ones, which is the term for pregnant. And I've had so many of them that I just had to take their heat away and make them not so happy because they just kept reproducing. I'm like, I do not need this many hissing roaches. But you can keep them together and it's no big deal. So of any size.
What's the loudest bug in your collection?
The feeder crickets. I would say aside from just basic feeder crickets, the hissers sometimes without, they'll just start hissing in their cages sometimes without being touched with any, they'll do it as a mating call. And sometimes the male hissers will get in like these hissing matches essentially. It's like a dominance thing. So sometimes you'll hear them hissing back and forth at each other. But that's one of the cool things about bugs is they're not really that loud. So depending on which ones you have, I guess. But
They're silent killers.
yeah. Not the roaches, but yeah.
So as far as like media goes, what are some of your favorite like movies or shows focused on bugs?
You're gonna laugh at this one because it's so juvenile, but I am very much a Disney person and I love Bugs Life. I will still watch it with my kids, and that's
a great movie.
It is. It really is. And it's so clever, all of the jokes that they have in there, which I didn't catch all of them until I was an adult watching it, just like a lot of other kids' movies like that. And I so wish that they had made a second one. Of course, they never did. But I don't know. I've just always liked that one. But I never got into I feel like so many of them put bugs in such a bad light, like other movies, or they're like horror, scary movies with these giant bugs. And I just never got into those because they were just so fake. And to me as a bug lover, it's just like, really? Come on. So I didn't get into it.
Well, some of the most famous ones, they paint the bugs as the bad guys until the very end, like Ender's Game. They always act like the bugs attack first, but at the very end, you find out, well, actually, the humans attack the bugs first. So that was really interesting. It was a nice little twist at the end.
The B movie didn't make the bugs the villain.
That's true. The B movie.
Oh, yeah.
That makes me so mad. Well,
what?
So because they're all males, it's like there's no male workers. What is this crap that you're trying to peddle to kids?
Oh, the drones. Yeah,
drones are worthless.
That's a true bug nerd comment for sure.
It's the same thing with I love A Bug's Life. So don't get me wrong, it is one of my favorite movies. But it still bothers me that there's male ants just chilling, like actually having a role, gathering things. Like no, they're all females.
That's
And
how many males would live in an ant colony?
One. Well, it depends on the species, and it depends on the cycle of the hive or the colony rather. Same thing with bees. So I don't know if Chris told you, but I actually I work for an agricultural company, and one of our big products is bumblebees. And there you can have tons of males in the hive, but that's just because in an industrial setting, we're not letting them escape. So normally they would hang out in the hive until they matured, and then they would just leave. They don't do anything.
Yeah.
Right now, because they're in an industrial setting, sometimes they're mating with the princess ants, which are their sisters, or princess bees rather. Yeah.
Yeah, he did tell me that. I think that's pretty interesting. So what is your degree in?
Technically, it's evolutionary biology, but I'm an entomologist. So
you are. That's so interesting. I love that. Like I said before, I never went to school for it because I just didn't think that I'd be able to get a job. There wasn't a big enough need, and so it's always just been this hobby or passion. But that's really cool that you've been.
I don't know how I got here. So like I've always loved biology.
Yeah.
And the entomology part just came into because I didn't want to fill out the paperwork to work with vertebrates in my PhD. So no one cares about bugs, so you can do any kind of experiment with them, which is really nice, but kind of sad. So we had like all of our research animals we killed in ethanol, and they struggle in it, which is really sad. So I have a drawer that's called the drawer of death, and I would just put the samples in there and look away.
Oh no.
We can't do it with mice.
Right.
Yeah.
Mice are, by the way, so I was in a mouse. This is completely unrelated, but now it's in my mind. I was in a mouse lab for like a hot second, and the way that they kill mice is that they actually basically euthanize them with CO2 sometimes, and the mice are intelligent enough to know that something's wrong and they're dying. And if you have them together, they actually will hold each other and hold each other's paws.
Oh my gosh!
And huddle
That's
as they die.
So sad.
Oh, but it's
I
actually
couldn't
part of
do
the
that.
regulations. After you've done an experiment with them, even if there's nothing wrong with them, there's no chemicals, or maybe it was a behavioral experiment or whatever, you have to kill them. You can't keep them.
That's
I
so
would be fired from that job so quick.
Oh yeah, well a lot of people do. They will be there for a couple weeks and then they'll try to steal the rats and the mice.
to like let them go or
Yep.
something.
Yeah, like that scene from E.T. where he like lets all the frogs go. Same idea.
Yeah. That's
We
really
have a comment from somebody that probably knows about the scorpion. It says the loudest bug is the idiot scorpion that gets its pincers stuck on the side of the cage.
Oh man. So that scorpion is in a different cage now. There was a cage that I had that had why can't I think of the word? Vertical. This is vertical, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So it had vertical air holes instead of just, little ones, vertical all along the side. And when he would kind of crawl around his cage at night, he would try to reach in there and he would get his claws stuck. So then he would try to get out and you would hear him scraping
Oh my
on
gosh,
the plexiglass. And I'm like, well, and we couldn't figure out what it was one time. I'm like, what in the world? And it's like, oh, scorpion. So it took me a couple weeks to go ahead and switch out the container, but he would get his claws stuck in there sometimes. Yes.
Fun stuff.
Yeah. So fun.
So other than A Bug's Life and the Bee Movie, which obviously we have some nerd issues with the Bee Movie, but there's also Ants. Remember Ants, the movie?
Yeah, that's another one that pisses me off because the main characters are males. It's like, what are they doing here?
Yeah.
So what happens to the males then? What do they do in non-captivity?
They are
situations?
literally there for breeding, Chris.
So then they just leave? Try
Well,
to find a new queen?
Let me think about the ants. I think most of the time the male drones just stay in the hive and they're just there in case the queen
in case
ant
the lead
needs
guy.
sperm. But for bees, they leave and they try to mate with princess bees before they before the winter comes or whatever the life cycle is for that particular species. So like
Gotcha.
honeybees, they have mating flights and like they mate mid-flight, and the male will actually like get kicked and the female detaches his penis mid-flight as she's kicking him, and he like will die like after having that part ripped off of him. But it's actually
bees.
Yeah, well, it's an evolutionary response because if that's stuck in there, then no other bee can mate with her. So you'll see other male bees try to like dig it out, and then knowing full well what's about to happen to them.
Oh my god, I didn't even know that.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Insects are brutal, man.
They are
Not as brutal as the weird thing you told me about the ducks.
Oh no!
Yeah.
So no, I can one up the ducks. So the ducks are famous for raping, and they have like multiple vaginas and stuff. But the bed bug, they have no like cloacal or vaginal opening or anything. So the male bed bug will actually just stab the abdomen of the female, inject his sperm into her bloodstream, and then just floats around until it gets to where the eggs are. Yeah, that would suck. Imagine that, that's how we bred. Oh my gosh, it would be so terrible.
wow.
That is awful.
That would be awful. Yeah.
And there's some bugs that they mate inside of the mother. So like the brother will mate with all the sisters. He will never be born, but the rest will. Like the sisters will be born pregnant.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. That would suck too. Imagine that lifestyle.
You mean never being born? Yeah.
Nature,
That's awful.
Nature is metal. Yep.
Yes, it is.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Thankfully, those are not the kinds of questions kids are asking at your
No.
shows, right?
No, no, they're not. They're a little bit less intense than that. Thank goodness.
I'm sure at some point that question will come up, but
At some point, maybe when I mean, my target audience is usually younger kids because, like I said, you know, the older you get, the less interested and the more scared, so you don't want to. But I'm sure if I did more, you know, high schools and things like that, it's there were some, you know, funny questions, and I can't think of any off the top of my head, but it was funny because at the Macomb Juvenile Justice Center, you know, you got kids in there who in there for, you know, not great things. And so you've got all these macho kids who are just sitting there and they're all fine and, you know, nothing scares me. And then you bring a tarantula out and they're like, oh, I don't want to touch that. You know, and you know, their peers are sitting there like, what, are you too scared to touch that? You don't want to, what, you're too afraid to touch the scorpion? It's like, I ain't afraid, you know, I'm not scared. I'll touch it. So it's just.
And they get stung.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, I would say with bugs, just I'm happy that the atmosphere changed in its concentration so that they're no longer freaking giant like they used to be.
Less oxygen now. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. What is that? You're bringing up the centipede earlier, and I was trying to think. What is that giant centipede? Like megalops or
they also
something
had
like
the
that?
giant dragonflies back then too.
Yeah.
So.
That would be
It's
cool.
from, like,
I would
from
be
fossils.
all about the giant
Crazy,
dragonflies.
you talking about like the fossils they find of these bugs, or like
Oh
what?
yeah. Oh my word. People, we'll talk about that. Sometimes I will with other people, and they're like, you can't tell me though that if you were to see a bug that big that it wouldn't freak you out. I would be like, oh no. I would be like, oh my word, go find the biggest container that you can right now. Like, bring me a laundry basket, something.
I feel like I would be running away from the centipede though.
Oh, the centipede would be terrifying. The dragonfly, though, I realize that they're like voracious hunters. It would be so cool to like hang on to one and like fly with it.
Well, could you imagine a praying mantis that was that big too, though? That would be terrifying.
I don't know. Praying mantises, they are so intelligent. They're so smart. And it's just so funny to watch kids' reactions too when I'll bring a praying mantis out and a kid will be kind of close to it. And then the mantis turns its head to look at it. They're like, oh my word, he's looking at me. And it's like, yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. If they were all giant, though, there's no way we would survive. Like, that's the scary thing about bugs, I think, is like, if they were bigger, they're the ultimate killing machines.
They're pretty intense. They can. Yeah.
They take no survivors, that's for sure.
Yes, I agree. These are that would
giant
be
skills from Jumanji. Yeah. Well, have you seen the new Jurassic World, the third one?
No.
Where they had the GMO, they like the GMO locust swarms.
No,
they were like massive. Like they're like
I
the
honestly
size of
really liked the direction that movie took. I know a lot of people hated it, but that is exactly what they would do. They would make genetically modified insects that would wipe out other crops.
That. Haven't you seen?
Well, they did that with the mosquitoes down in Florida, I think.
No, not just that. That there another group used them for a malaria vaccine.
Oh yeah.
So they genetically modified a bunch of mosquitoes to basically have the lowest dosage of malaria in them. So it's like a low dose vaccine.
Oh, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. So they had a bunch of people subject themselves to a bunch of bites from these mosquitoes to get low level.
Oh yeah, have you ever been in a mosquito lab? That's what they do. If they run out of like cow blood or whatever, the undergrads or master students will stick their arms into the nets.
Oh my gosh, no!
Screw that. I grew up with too many mosquitoes around my house.
Did you do that, Will?
I thankfully no, I didn't because I wasn't in the mosquito lab. But yeah, I've seen it. And it's not good.
Oh god. Yeah.
Only 10 undergrads got Zika virus.
The premise of the beginning of Jurassic World, you don't mind if we spoil this, right?
No, go for it.
So essentially the idea is this massive corporation wants to wipe out all the competition for seeds. And so they breed these specific locust swarms that will take out everything except their specific GMO crop.
Yeah.
So like
that's
everybody
exactly
has
what
to
happened.
Yeah.
Because otherwise the locust swarms will take it out. It's like, wow, that's pretty insane.
It's honestly genius. Like if someone actually figured that out, it would be awful for everyone else, but it would be great.
Somebody would definitely do that. Like somebody with that has a lot of greed in their heart would be like, all right, time to do this. Let's make all the money we can. But it's kind of crazy how much bugs can be, experimented on and different things, like the stuff that has come out of this research and whatnot. Like, Will, you spent years doing research on bugs.
Wait, have you seen the ones where they control cockroaches?
Mm-mm.
They make cockroaches into remote control cockroaches.
Oh, don't they cut their heads off and put like the microchips?
No,
on
they just add something like a controller on them to like give them different impulses to their.
Oh, just like cause the nervous system to react a specific way.
Yeah, they can
Yeah,
basically
you
fly
can get
a
away with
cockroach.
insects doing that. You couldn't do that to a mouse or other vertebrates.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're trying to make spy roaches basically
Spy roaches.
to bring cameras and stuff to places.
They're like sending the roaches out and they like find like a big pile of dung somewhere. Like, nope, never mind. We're heading that way.
I mean, there's a ton of DARPA initiatives on insects. It's pretty crazy.
It's like they release the cockroaches with cameras on their heads and they find all the nasty stuff in their house. Like, whoops.
Oh, yeah.
That would be kind of interesting. A life in the day of a cockroach. Like, put a video camera on it and see what it does.
Just let it just be eating scatter.
And then the new kits, and it's the only thing living. So
Yeah. People would see how dirty their houses are
That's true. Yeah.
under all the stuff they haven't cleaned in forever.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to see that.
So the premise that you brought up earlier, like that bugs are the greatest killing machines ever, as far as like if they're made for that. This is kind of that in a game, Grounded. The whole idea is you get shrunk down to the size of, I think, an ant is what they said. So like all of your foes are different sized bugs. And I sent the link to, I think, all of you guys.
it's basically Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Except you're fighting
That's
bugs.
what I was thinking too. Yeah.
But it's interesting. They've got the list of creatures. Like some are harmless, and then some are neutral, and then some are considered angry or probably dangerous would be a better description. And maybe we could go through this list real quick and like see if we agree with what they've put on each of these lists and like whether or not they're actually dangerous. I don't know if you guys think that'd be a fun thing to do or not.
Be interesting. Yeah.
I just want to say all spiders, yes.
I mean,
real quick,
that's just
before we
asking
jump
to
into
get
this.
killed.
go ahead. Yeah.
Have you ever, two things actually, because I realized we haven't asked your favorite insect yet, which is
Oh,
Travis.
shoot.
And
Yeah.
two, have you ever like raised jumping spiders?
Yes. My female, I've had a regal jumping spider.
Ooh, Regal's are pretty.
Yeah. I got her as an adult. It was about a year ago, and she gave me 3 egg sacs. And she gave me her third one maybe about a month ago, and a week later she finally passed. But I had her for about a year, and I have a lot of good pictures of her, and I got her out all the time, and she was beautiful, like super fun personalities for sure. So yeah, I've got that one on the list for another one I want to replace. There's so many good ones out there.
Yeah, they're pretty easy to catch too, so you don't necessarily have to buy them.
Yeah, exactly, for sure.
And then
Actually,
favorite insect.
The weirdest bug that I ever came home to at my house growing up, there was one time that we had gotten like fruit and like something jumped off of it when we got home, and all of a sudden we walked out to get on the bus the next day, and in between this lawn decoration in the house there was this giant web with a yellow spider in the middle, and I'm pretty sure it was a banana spider. I think that's what they're called.
I don't think banana spiders aren't are you talking about like that type of tarantula that you can find on?
I think it's called a banana spider. I could be wrong. It was yellow.
I mean, if that's what that is, you should
Sound
capture
like
that.
Yeah, I think it was this one.
It's not a common garden spider.
Maybe it wasn't the banana spider. I don't know. It was yellow, and no, actually, it had a bigger.
Yellow and black with like almost not stripes, but
Yeah.
The second picture to the
yeah.
I guess.
I don't know if it's that one or it was actually had a pretty big body.
No, I think go up a little. That second one and
Let me
the
just see.
images.
Okay, maybe it wasn't banana. It was like an exotic. I remember I looked it up because it was really weird. If it's not yellow exotic, that's gonna give us some weird stuff. Yellow exotic spider.
Just look up a common garden spider.
Hold on.
Yeah, or common orb weaver. Garden.
It was a big web. It had a big body. It was a huge
Was
spider.
it that one right
Yeah.
there?
I want the eyes.
No, left to the left.
This guy
Nope.
did
No.
not have the spikes.
You're
Oh, this
just
one in the
trying to
middle.
make it as
Yeah.
epic as
Yeah,
That
yeah.
one.
No, I think it was that one. Yeah, that
Chris
looks
is
like
just,
the one I saw.
he's committed to this being an
Mhm.
epic story.
That looks like the right one. Yeah, it kind of looked like a wasp a bit.
Good news is I don't think you introduced an invasive species.
Oh, I don't think it lasted past my mom finding out that it existed.
Let's hope.
I'm pretty sure.
Have you
it
ever
was
seen
gone after
arachnophobia? That's what you're describing right now.
that. Arachnophobia. Yeah.
Yes. They
Well, I can tell you
transport the
this.
spider. It somehow miraculously breeds with local spiders, and then it takes over an entire town.
Is that what? And at the level of the spider size, right?
What do you mean?
You're not saying legitimately. You're making up a story.
No,
about
no. There's
arachnophobia.
a movie called
Yeah.
Arachnophobia.
Movie,
Has
it's a movie.
I'm recognizing now that what you said was not sarcasm. It's a
No,
movie
no.
you're describing. Okay,
Yes.
I understand now. Okay, sorry. I just remember that, and it was the weirdest thing I've ever come home to is that spider with a giant web in the middle of our doorway. It's like, how'd you get here? All right. So, you guys, any other questions before you jump into this little fun thing?
Did you say what your favorite bug was?
Oh, I would say it wouldn't be an insect though. I would have to say arachnid. Definitely just all the spiders, all the tarantulas. Those are just, and I don't know if I have a couple particular favorites. Right now, probably my favorite tarantula that I have is my Carabina versicolor. It's a type of a boreal tarantula. Another name of it is, I believe, what's it? A Martinique red tree spider, I think, is another name for it. But that one is just beautiful, gorgeous colors as it gets older, and its colors change pretty drastically for a tarantula as it gets older, and I really like that one. So that's kind of my favorite right now.
I also think we did miss one question earlier. Did you answer whether you have a Rhino Beetle?
Oh, I do not. I don't have one right now. No, the beetles, the really cool beetle species I find are hard to get, and also they don't live very long either. I have a Hercules beetle right now, just at the beginning stage, and I've had this thing since September of last year, and it's still just in its first stage. It's just gotten a lot bigger right now, but they take so long. I feel like the bigger species to kind of get to where you want them to for show purposes, I guess. If I was just doing it as a hobby, I would probably have more, but right now I do not. I do have blue feigning death beetles. I've got
Oh yeah, I remember seeing those. Those were cool.
yeah, I've got some yellow belly sun beetles. I've got some darkling beetles, like the acrobat beetles specifically. So those are three that I have right now that I kind of use for showing that kids can hold.
And then one other question I had, I just thought of it. What's the biggest bug that you have? Or had, I guess. I'm not sure if you had one that was bigger that you don't have anymore.
Probably I had a jungle nymph for a while, or a Malaysian walking stick is another name for
They're
it.
very cool, very chunky.
Yes, that was, I believe they're the second heaviest insect in the world. That guy was a girl, it was a girl, female. She was pretty big. She was big, beautiful. I didn't let kids hold her during shows because she does, if you look at her back legs specifically, she's got pretty sharp thorns on her back legs, and if she feels threatened, she'll lift her hind legs up and kind of snap her legs shut. So that could kind of, pinch a kid's finger. So I was the only one who would hold her, but she was pretty good size.
Is this threat pose legit? Like, tries to pretend like a scorpion?
Yes, they would do that. I've got a thorny devil stick insect that does that occasionally too. So, yeah.
Very cool.
Interesting.
Yeah, these things would just, if they were giant, we'd be dead.
Well, okay, real quick, Will, wasn't Roanoke's theory that one movie with futuristic thing with Chris Pratt going back and forth was that they're ants? Remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah. The Tomorrow War?
Tomorrow War. That's right. Yeah.
I honestly don't remember what he said on it.
But it was like because the creatures were presenting like
white
it's
spikes?
so funny. Yeah, white spikes. Yep, that's
Man,
right.
I can't remember. I remember those two facts about that, but
yeah, it's like if ants got bigger and we were like small enough to be
ants are terrifying. Well, the thing is, like, superorganisms, so that like the colony is a brain. So out of the colony, they're really freaking smart.
Right.
So if they're bigger, that would be very scary.
Not just that. Just remember, ants are constantly at war and enslave each other, depending on the species. So you don't want them to be
They would probably farm us. They'd make us their.
Yeah, they would feed us to their fungus instead of the leaves.
All right. So harmless creatures. Let's get into this. Aphids. Agree,
Yeah.
disagree?
I don't know. They shoot a bunch of honeydew. You get stuck in that, and then you slowly die from the mold exposure.
Yeah.
Not on purpose. That they're
Because
not.
remember,
trying to
we're the
hurt
size
you.
of an ant. We're the size of an ant for this.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
we're the
then this
size
is a
of
great
ants.
source of food. Then we
Yes.
could farm these like cows, like ants do.
I would say we're good.
Mm-hmm.
Crows. I don't know why they have crows as a
I call
harmless
wolf
creature.
crap.
They
That
would
thing
eat you
would-
for sure.
They would totally eat you.
I'm like,
Mhm.
wait a second.
Unless you're too small for it to care.
I don't know. I don't crows eat ants.
It would notice that you were a little tiny person and it would
More
relish
interested.
eating you.
I mean, if
Like
you're
the-
the
like the
size
bird
of
in
an
Bug's
ant,
Life.
well,
With the
If
grass.
you're
I
that
guess it wouldn't
small,
see
I don't
you.
think they would bother with you.
yeah.
I don't
But
know. My chickens grab ants, and they're bigger than crows.
Yeah, but they're also ground feeders. That's what they eat is stuff on the ground.
Yeah, I guess a crow might not notice. How about the gnat?
I mean, they'll fly into you and probably hurt you because they like to go into your eyes already. So
I
They
would
did
say
bother.
fine.
Yeah.
I don't know why a gnat would attack an ant.
I don't know, man. They're just flying around.
Well, but we're ant-sized, right? We're not the actual ant.
That's true. We're
Mhm,
not an
mhm.
ant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe a gnat would do something. Who knows?
Yeah, we're soft and squishy and moist. It probably still come after us.
Still mostly water.
But wouldn't we be, if we're the size of an ant, aren't we bigger than the gnat?
I mean, we're already bigger
What
than
ant
that.
species,
Try to
Chris?
go
You didn't
into your
define the
eye.
parameters here.
I mean, we could get really detailed with
Yeah.
this.
They already try to fly into your eyes, Chris.
All right. Let's move on. How about the grub?
Yeah, that's harmless.
Grubs are very hungry
we're
all the
good.
time.
Don't be in front of it.
Would they
Don't
eat
be in
an
front of it.
ant-sized
It's
creature?
No.
slow.
They wouldn't.
Okay. What the heck
A
is a
meaty gnat.
A meaty gnat.
It's literally just a fat gnat.
We'll just stick with what we said with the gnat. Like, probably okay. What about scarabs?
I would. Well,
I don't know what they eat, but I mean it's a beetle, so there's a good
I was gonna
chance
say,
it'll try to
it's
eat you.
yeah. If it's a beetle, I mean, they eat a lot of protein. They need
Mhm.
protein.
It
So
looks like the premises were bigger than it, but that's just going off the photo.
I would.
I'm not
say-
sure why a tadpole would be.
That's
Every-
dangerous. I
Well,
feel
you
like
If you
it
fell
would
in
fell
the
in the
water
water,
seconds.
Ted will eat you for sure.
Yeah,
So
Just
stay out
like
of
the-
water.
just like the next thing would eat you too.
Yes.
I
Water
don't-
boatman.
Yeah, and
They got weaves. Or weave.
It's supposed to be a weevil.
Oh, it's weevil. No, it's just
Weevil.
smashed together on the screen.
yeah,
It
the
is
font
weevil.
sucks.
I don't think that would bother you. They usually like eat nuts and such.
Weevils are good.
So this is neutral creatures are initially passive, but will attack the player if bothered or attacked.
Mm.
So some of them have a swarm behavior. Well, that makes sense. The bee.
Yeah,
Do bees and
Bumblebee.
ants fight?
Now, bumblebees are honestly really gentle, and ants will steal their honey all the time, and they're not bothered at all. So
Huh.
you
Yeah,
have to
no, I
really
know.
piss off the bumblebee.
Yeah, bumblebees are very chill. I didn't realize that ants stole their honey.
Yeah, so do yellow jackets, and some wasps will do. You actually will see a lot of kleptoparasitic wasps where they are stealing the pollen right off of their legs as they're flying into their hives.
Yeah, see that I knew. I didn't
Really?
realize ants bothered. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Little bastards.
How about the black worker ant?
I feel like I'd kill you.
Well, and maybe if you disturbed it, I guess.
Yeah.
Too bad we're
Because-
not an ant.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Fireflies.
I don't know, man. Some of the females of some species are mean.
Really?
Yeah, they will flash. Well, I mean, to other fireflies, I guess I have to clarify, but they will flash the mating signal of another species to attract the males, and they eat them.
Just makes me go back and think about the Bug's Life thing when he says, "Hey, turn your butt off."
One of my favorite scenes in that movie, still to this day, is "Don't look into the light."
I can't help it. It's so beautiful.
It's like the perfect zoom out. And you just,
Oh man,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. How about the ladybug, guys? What do you think?
Well, I mean, no, it would definitely eat you because we're like
Yeah.
essentially like a nymph or an aphid at this point.
Yeah.
So we're squishy. We're not hard like an ant.
It's still.
They'd eat you.
I think the moth would probably eat you too.
Probably.
Yeah.
I
Although-
love moths.
Mm-hmm.
More.
The
My
red
wife's
worker
not-
ant would totally fight you. It's a red
My-
ant. Those things.
My
are
wife
making-
has a little issue with moths. They try to eat her yarn if they get into the house.
Mm.
Yeah.
All right.
Mothballs.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it about the mothballs that actually keep the moths out?
It
Just the smell.
stinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, the chemicals.
It's offensive to their senses.
Because I've never actually smelled a mothball, to be honest with you.
It probably overwhelms their senses, so they can't find what they're
Yeah,
trying to eat more than
It's screwing
anything.
up their sensory organs some way. But do you know why they're attracted to lights and even flames?
Why is that?
It gives off the same phosphorescence as the female mating pheromone. So they're actually
Really?
trying to mate with the lamp.
Oh, that makes the context even worse.
Oh man, yeah. Well, it's
That
like
poor
when it's
light,
flying, she's
though.
like, it's so beautiful. It's because he really thinks it's that beautiful.
Yeah. I can't help it.
Oh my god.
Changes what was going on at every light that I've ever seen. Moths. That's a whole new context to the red light district almost. So.
Oh my gosh. All right. How about roly polies?
I think you're good.
I would think they're
I honestly have no idea what they eat. They're actually crustaceans, but I don't know.
And then they
Yeah, they are.
specifically distinguish the sickly roly poly. He's not just a roly poly, he's
I mean,
sickly.
aren't cockroaches
A stickler?
technically crustaceans too?
No, they do keep reclassifying them, but they are insects.
Well, if you're allergic to shellfish, you will be allergic to a cockroach.
Really?
Yes.
Is it just like
Really?
the
That is
I've
that is
heard
if you ever
that.
listen to a Joe Rogan episode, that someone on Fear Factor who is allergic to shellfish literally had an allergic reaction to eating a cockroach.
It could just be that one person though.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, it could
but
also
they're-
be the
they're related
just the
enough.
chitin that they're allergic to, like the actual carapace of the animal.
I
don't know what
but
you're allergic
they're
to.
related enough that
Okay.
Joe Rogan talks about it. Apparently, it was brought up on the Fear Factor. So.
That's interesting. I've heard of that, but I've never really done research into it. But I've heard of it.
She's probably not watching people eat cockroaches, I would imagine.
I mean, I don't have. You guys ever eaten bugs?
No.
I don't
actually have a
think
sticker
so.
on my computer that says I've eaten bugs.
Nice. I've had a couple of bugs before. I've had cicadas. I've had crickets. I've had grasshoppers. I think that's it. Yeah.
Like we're not talking raw, we're talking like, processed ones or raw ones.
So the cicadas, I actually cooked them myself. The crickets were dried. You know, those you go in those like little candy shops and the dried ones.
Yeah.
That, and then I actually did a show for it was a church summer camp for this Hispanic church, and the pastor was there, and he has been all over the world, and he asked me if I had ever eaten grasshoppers before, and I was like, no, I haven't. And he's like, would you? And I was like, sure, why not? And he goes, okay, because around the corner at this Mexican store, they have seasoned grasshoppers. I'm going to have someone pick them up, and then at the end of your show, they're going to be here, and we're going to eat them in front of the kids.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're already dead. Like,
Mhm.
so he went.
They were
and
seasoned
sure
at
enough,
least.
You what?
They were
They were
seasoned at
seasoned.
least.
Yeah, they were seasoned. They were like, I looked at the package. There was like lime and chili powder and garlic.
Oh, then yeah, you're barely
But
even eating it.
They were dried. They didn't really taste like much, but he kept his word. I reached over at my table, put the last container of bugs down, and in its place was a package of seasoned grasshoppers. We did. We ate them in front of the kids, and I mean, it didn't really taste like much, honestly. But
No, they're just crunchy, and like sometimes you get like wings or legs stuck in your teeth.
it's stuck in your teeth, exactly. Definitely had to go home and floss, and then be like, "Hey, babe, you want to kiss me?"
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I've never. I think I had the option to eat crickets once, and I remembered that my geckos were eating crickets, and I was like, I'm not going to eat the gecko food.
You can get like cricket powder, like instead of like flour, you can have cricket flour.
Yeah.
I don't know how well it works, but I do have a package of it. I don't think I've ever used it.
Interesting.
So now we're on to the angry creatures.
Oh yeah, the antlion. Those things are vicious. Look this up on like the pictures. This is like the Sarlacc pit. No, that's Sarlacc pit. Is that the Sarlacc pit? No, I'm forgetting.
It's literally that one photo.
Yeah,
It's the same. That's the grounded one. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've got.
Well, look at the ant that's in distress in the sand there to the right.
Oh, right here. Oh yeah, it is like a Sarlacc pit. What?
Yeah, so they make these little, pits, and the ants will fall in, and they like get trapped by the sand. And if they hit the bottom, the antlion will pop up and like just grab them, pull them back out of the sand.
Oh, good.
Yep.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, we're probably dead if this thing.
Yeah, that thing is gonna kill you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not very big, but it's gonna kill you.
Yeah, well, if you ever read the Witcher books, they actually have giant ant lions that eat a unicorn.
Oh god.
Well, they bite the unicorn and didn't actually get it, but.
So we got this robot thing. If they got robots that size and it's coming around to kill you,
I love what you get from it though. When you destroy it, it's just raw science.
It doesn't even make sense.
Raw science, pure raw science,
Mm-hmm.
just like Grandma always made it.
Oh, we got the black Ox Beetle.
These guys are pretty strong, pretty tough.
Mm-hmm.
This spider's gonna crush you, right? Is he pretty big?
Yeah.
Black soldier ant.
Okay, I'll kill you for sure.
I like how this is just the response. It'll kill you. It'll kill you.
You're dead.
The Black Widow. We're probably dead.
Where the heck are we living in this game? There's Black
Your
Widows
backyard. That's where it says
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, and your
better
backyard.
be in California.
There's Black Widows in Michigan, I think, man.
Yeah, my friend of mine.
There are Black Widows in Michigan. They're not common, but they're here.
A friend of mine
Where the
got.
heck are they in Michigan?
They're in your house, Andrew.
No.
Andrew, listen.
No.
I have
Check your
something.
shoes.
A friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, Andrew, actually got bit by either the Black Widow or the brown. Was it the brown
recluse?
One or the other one. I don't remember which. But a mutual friend of ours, Andrew, got bit by that, or his sister, one or the other.
Well, probably brown recluse, because not everyone's allergic to that, so most people don't have a reaction.
I doubt it was.
They had to
the
go to the
Black
hospital.
Widow.
I know that much.
Doubt it was the Black Widow. That's a story you would make it very clear you got bit by a Black Widow because the second you're
I
bit,
haven't
you
heard the
start
story in
on
over a
fire.
decade. I can't remember.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, like, when the Black Widow bites you, it's like from what I've always heard, it's pretty much you're on the clock.
All right, you need to look up the Bombardier Beetle.
No,
These
I want
guys
to
are
know
really
what the
cool.
difference is between a Black Widow and a Black Widowing. Is it a different
don't know.
thing?
No.
Okay, never mind then. All right, Bombardier Beetle. You want me to look this one up?
Yep. These ones shoot acid out of their butt.
Yep. If you go to Disney World, they have the It's Tough to Be a Bug show in Animal Kingdom. And I think that beetle or that bug, they've got...
it has little faucets that come out of the seats and spray in the face.
Yeah, you get sprayed by a lot of different things.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, I don't remember the acid, but it's unbelievable that an insect.
It's a vinegar type based thing, isn't it?
Vinegar. Yeah, I believe so.
Aren't all stink
Go ahead.
/ acid things like that for most animals kind of vinegar based?
I don't
Can't speak
think
to that.
so. I don't believe
I know
so.
there's a lot of ants that have like.
This isn't just skunks vinegar based too?
Okay,
I thought it was.
Are these things that big?
I didn't think.
Apparently.
I didn't think they were that big.
That must be a completely different animal then.
Could be. Lots of people miss they don't put the right species for things down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also, Andrew, earlier you said that all spiders would eat you. There actually are some spiders that are vegetarian.
Which ones are those?
The vegetarian spiders. I don't remember.
Give me a name. Give me a name.
You can look it up though. They eat like the plant juices, and there's actually some that pollinate.
Okay, so any of them that have a web.
I mean, they all have webs. They're spiders. They don't have like necessarily like a web, like a dedicated like location, but they have anchor lines at the very least.
Well, because that's part of their movement, Andrew.
That's different than like building a web.
True though that like
things,
there's multiple kinds of webs that spiders can shoot.
Yeah, it's like 7 or 9 different glands or something they can shoot out.
Well, yeah, it depends on what they're using it for.
Did you guys see the goats that they made to make spiders?
Let's not get it. Let's not go down that route, Andrew. Let's stick to bugs.
What?
I don't need to hear about your goat spider.
Oh, come on, man. That's
whatever it is going on.
They merged it with bug DNA, basically.
Yeah, there's been some interesting modifications performed on goats involving spiders. I have heard of this story.
Interesting.
But you had one of your spiders that you were showing off at the library when we were there had let out a specific kind of web. I don't remember what you said it was, but it was not the type that they spin to make a web, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's just the type of web that particular species does. So it was a curly hair tarantula. And they usually lay ground web. They dig. They're diggers for sure. And this one in particular, I mean, you can put them in a container and they'll just move the dirt around how they want it. And then once they've got it how they want, they just lay layers of silk on the ground. And of all the tarantulas that I've had, none of them have been super keen to essentially like leave web wherever they are walking on my hand. But this one in particular does it very consistently. Even my other curly hairs didn't really do that, but almost without fail, when I take this one to shows, it crawls on people and I can just pull the web right out and people think it's so cool. So it's fun.
Aren't most tarantulas ground-based, right? They're not.
Not necessarily. I mean, you've got terrestrial, fossorial, arboreal. Some of them, I mean, they're tree dwelling. It really just depends on where they're located. You know, tropical areas, you'll see a good mix of both kinds.
Oh, okay.
What's the largest one you've ever touched?
The largest one
that was a really odd way to say it. I'm sorry.
Sorry. I'm 12.
And Will started smirking. I was like, oh God, what did I say?
I wasn't even thinking that way, but thanks, guys. All right.
Sorry, Will. Yeah, messed me up.
It's my bad.
I wasn't thinking that way either.
I didn't even think about it until you just.
Until you said it.
Yeah. Thanks, Will.
I came close to a Goliath bird-eating tarantula one time. There was one out at an expo, but the person who had him wasn't very confident in himself. And I'm like, you know what? If you're not confident and you're not sure how this tarantula is going to respond, I'm not going to risk it. So I didn't. But
that's a big spider. I don't think I would be confident no matter what. I don't want to get bit by that.
Yeah, I have thought of getting one for shows, not for holding, but just for the size, factor. But if you get one that's already fully grown like that, you don't know how old they are, and they can be quite expensive, and they require big containers, and traveling with something like that would be I wouldn't want to put her out into a different container that's easy to travel with every single time I go out. So it's just not really worth it. I think that it would be good to get one in taxidermy form, like after it's already passed. I think I would probably do something like that.
No, that's the one you don't want on your face, Will.
No.
Yeah.
That's the one that you'll smack it and it smacks you back.
Yeah, that's the one that when it bites, it's just going to hit both your eye sockets. And just...
Oh, God. So, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, as far as tarantulas biting, they're not known for biting humans, generally speaking. But are there species that, if you were to have them like in captivity or for your shows, where it'd be like, okay, this one definitely ain't coming out of the box because they do bite people? Are there like tarantula species like that?
Oh yeah, for sure. There are definitely ones. I mean, people ask me all the time, have you ever been bit by any of your tarantulas or any of your bugs? And honestly, the answer is no, because I'm very aware of what kind of species that I'm working with and what their temperament is. Because I really don't want to get bit. Like, I don't, if it happens, it happens. But, I try not to put myself in that situation. But there are some tarantulas that I just would not want to mess with at all, because I mean, you even hear stories from other tarantula keepers. There's some species where people will kind of stress out when it's time to feed them or to put them in a different size enclosure, and they kind of freak out because it's known that even if you lift the lid and put some tongs in there, they will just jump right up and like grab you with their fangs. They don't want
Oh
to
my
be messed with.
gosh.
So I try not to keep ones like that, because number one, as far as show purposes, it's kind of pointless to have one like that. I had a feather leg baboon tarantula once that a guide in Expo convinced me to get. Like, it would be really good to have to show people that when you stick tongs in there, he'll immediately go in defense position to show them that. But I just kind of decided against it because he was just so intense, and I would never be able to hold something like that. And so, so there's some I just don't get, because, and I've got kids in my house too. If anything like that were to jump out and get loose, there's some things I don't want to risk. So.
All right. Let's get through a couple more of these, and then I do want to give you the opportunity to ask Will any questions if you have any. I know he's shorter time than the rest of us. He said he's got to hop off around 11, so I don't want to. So actually, let's just do that now. Do you have any questions specifically for Will? I know you had some ideas on bumblebees.
Well, I mean, I thought that what you did for work was really cool. I don't really get to meet very many entomologists, or talk to them in person. It just doesn't happen. But I'm curious, on the topic of bites and things like that, have you ever been bit by anything medically significant or stung?
I mean, I get stung with bumblebees all the time. Thankfully, I'm not allergic to them, so that has not become a problem yet. I did have a paper wasp nest fall on my face one time.
Oh, wow.
And I did have to go to the hospital for that. I got stung, I think it was 31 times.
Oh, geez.
And it was all contained in my face and neck.
How old were you when that happened?
10.
Ooh.
Oh, it hurt. My dogs got wrapped up in the pine tree, and I was shaking the leashes loose, and it just fell out of the pine tree on my face.
And even with that happening at 10, you still are doing what you do. Like, that is where the passion comes from. Even if I were to be bit by something, I would still keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, honestly, I was terrified of never bumblebees, because bumblebees have always been really friendly. You can pet them and stuff, but terrified of yellow jackets and hornets for a long time, and wasps. And I basically forced myself to get over that in high school, because I realized, like, my niece is really young and she was living with me at the time. And I realized that I was overreacting in front of her. And then she started to get scared of them too. And I was like, no, I don't want you to be scared of these. I want you to realize, like, if you respect them, it's fine. If you don't shake a tree and have the nest fall on your face, you're okay. So I forced myself to get over that. And now, like, I can't describe the process because it's under NDA, but we go, like, there's mating tents, and we go into mating tents with the bumblebees. And now, like, I can do that with no problem. I can, like, pick them up and not be worried. So,
yeah, no, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you wanted to ask Will or anything like that?
Well, first of all, are you here in Michigan? Are you based out of here?
Yep.
What area, like what city, where do you work out of specifically?
That might be a better question outside of the.
That's fine.
I'm fine. Like, people can track me
I don't know
down.
if you're sharing that.
It's in Howell, Michigan.
Okay, gotcha.
And it's a Dutch company. It's Copert. And they just happen to have their U.S. office and lab here. And
Very
just
cool.
Total coincidence.
Yeah, no, that's an awesome opportunity to be able to do that. I'm glad that's a very cool job.
Yeah, it is really cool. I get to, there's a couple of entomologists in the lab now, and I don't just work with bumblebees. I work with parasitoid wasps, different types of beetles, and then also like mites. So, like, all the beneficial insects that you can apply to crops.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, mites. I know a lot of the millipedes that I have. You obviously, I'm sure, know, like, they house mites too. So that's always an interesting thing to see too. So
wait, they house mites? The millipedes do?
Yeah, millipedes do.
Like, they cling on to them?
Yeah, they cling on to them. They'll kind of clean them. It's kind of just like they kind of work together. They're harmless to them for the most part. Most mites are. So, yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Kind of like the fish in the ocean that clean the whales, whatever that situation is.
Just like that. Yeah.
Mutually beneficial.
Maybe that's another question. What is the? Are you allowed to talk about what you did your PhD on, Will, or no?
Yeah.
It's like the whole farming thing, the whatever that is. What did you end up finding out? What was with the farming?
So, I mean, a lot of the work was theoretical, so it wasn't necessarily. I mean, people know that ants farm insects, and all right. So I guess I started at the beginning. So I did trophic interactions, so interactions between different trophic levels. So basically, like the food web, how the food web works. And in my system, I worked with tree hoppers and ants and plants, and basically it was just the interaction between those three, agents in that system, and how ants are selecting for different tree hoppers to be on their plants, and the ants are selecting for different tree hoppers, and there's like this interconnectedness where they all benefit. And if you actually remove one, it can cause a cascade in the entire ecosystem. So everyone's heard of keystone species.
Yep.
There's also something called a keystone interaction, where like alone a species is not that important, but if they form an interaction with another species, that becomes a bedrock of that entire ecosystem. And ants are actually notorious for doing this. So like by themselves, sometimes like if you eliminate the ant, it's not that big of a deal. But the way that they're interacting with another organism in the environment, again, it can collapse the entire ecosystem. So in my system is prairie fields. And if you broke that connection, and like heat stress and like climate change, a lot of things can cause this to happen. But if you break that connection between these two species, it can affect the protein, the nitrogen uptake of the plants. It can affect the pollinators that are visiting plants. It can affect all the predators that are on the plant. It's really fascinating. And something that you would never notice if you're just walking through the field. You'd just be like, oh, these pretty flowers, and never necessarily actually flip the leaf over and be like, oh, they're ants. Oh, what are these ants doing? Oh, they're actually like looking after these little, they're basically the same size as aphids. So these tree hoppers. And then you actually start, observing that, like, oh, they're actually actively farming these tree hoppers, to the point where this interaction has been around for like, I think the earliest example in amber is at least 100 million years. And the princess ants, when they go to establish a new colony, will actually take a pregnant tree hopper with them. So they basically take their cow as a dowry to this new colony, and to establish this connection there. It's pretty cool.
It's so interesting. It's crazy how people can do things like, just take a walk, or, go through a field, go on a trail. And I mean, my husband, he'll stop and he'll pick flowers for me sometimes on his way home. And sometimes he'll come home with just some wild flowers. And as I'm cleaning them and kind of cutting them and prepping them to just put them in a container, I mean, you shake it a little bit and you can have, like, I've had as many as like 10, 15 different species of bug just on one little bunch. And it's like, they're all there doing something. And a lot of times people you just don't pay attention or notice it, or all the things that you're saying, like people you have no idea all the things that are going on in that little world.
Yeah, it's really cool. And a specific aspect of what I did was even more hidden. So I actually looked at the vibrational communication that insects have. So a lot of insects you can hear, one of the questions was like your loudest insect, your loudest bug. A lot of insects and arachnids will actually send vibrations through the substrate, so through the plant itself, that you can't pick up without special instruments. And they communicate mostly through that way. So 90% of all insects and arachnids communicate solely through that. So the ones that you think are silent are actually, they're talking all the time. So it's actually really fascinating. It can sound like whales. It can sound like wolves, or, just normal like rhythmic thumping or something like that. Yeah. And I can actually record that sound, play it back to ants and tree hoppers specifically, because they actually have they have true communication, which is something very unique in the animal world, where they can actually have different signals and they know what it is. And you can play it back and elicit a response. So they have like alarm calls, and you can actually play it back. And the alarm call to like an ant, they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, what is going on? There's something attacking my cows." And they'll start they will actually round them up. So they'll have a sentry that rounds them up, brings them back to the nest, and then you have these other ants that will actually go and like search out wherever the disturbance is. Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's incredible. So incredible.
Yeah,
it's like you were saying, it's not the individual ant that's smart, it's the hive mind of the ants all at once.
Yeah.
Yep.
That is like such an interesting thing to study, is like hive mind species like that, because there's no way we could actually physically like emulate that in a way that we would understand what they're doing, except for like studying like you're doing, Will. Like I could not physically think in a way that a hive mind could think. So it'd be hard for me to.
So they are in a hive, but the hive mind makes it seem like they're all interconnected. Like,
but they're not.
Like, not like in a computer sense, but
right.
If you look at the hive, like them, all the vibrations that they're putting off and all the pheromones that they're constantly releasing, they really are acting as a brain. And they actually they actually use these from computer models now to understand AI and how we could potentially make better AI and have it think. And they do it based off of like beehives or ant colonies. So yeah, because they're like individual little cells and they communicate. It's just like, it is literally like cells, but on a macro level. It's really cool, and it's much easier to look at than trying to like take a section of someone's brain and look at it.
Yeah.
Well, plus somebody would have to be dead to do that, right?
Yeah. Well, it's the same reason why we use squid neurons, because they're gigantic compared to ours. So that's why we study squid neurons, and we know so much about squids. It's the same idea. It's much easier to look at a beehive because it's gigantic.
Yeah. Wow.
Shameless plug: bumblebees are better pollinators. So if you ever want to put in a pollinator garden, make sure you're going with a bumblebee that's native. Bumblebees on average can pollinate an entire flower one time, whereas a honeybee will take up to 20 trips.
Yeah.
This is because they're so much bigger.
So much bigger. They also, honeybees are not native, so they're generalists, and they're really what's the word I'm looking for? Domesticated. So they're just not as good as anymore. And bumblebees do something called buzz pollination. So when they land on a plant, they can actually buzz at a certain frequency that opens the flower up, and the flower will open and release more pollen.
Really? I didn't even realize that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really cool. You can actually see it happen on like YouTube videos, and bumblebees are also, when they fly, they're really fuzzy, and they can, I can never remember if it's a positive or a negative charge, but it's one or the other. They become charged. And when they get close to a flower, you can actually see the pollen shoot off the flower onto the bee, because the pollen is at the opposite charge.
Yeah.
And bumblebees are native to North America, right? That's what you're saying.
All over.
Yeah.
You just have to get the right species. So here in Michigan and most of the eastern United States by this point, the most common bee or bumblebee you're going to see is probably Bombus impatiens. And those are, commercially available, so they're very easy to get.
Yeah.
What was it? Bombus what?
Impatience.
Literally, that's what. Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't have a T at the end, but yeah, they're very common. And the males are really cute. So the males have little yellow mustaches on their face, so they're really easy to identify. Yeah, that one right here. I don't think that's actually the same species. Actually, now that I look at it, look up the male. Just this. I see only workers there. Actually, that one on the yellow flower, that's a male. I can see the mustache.
A little mustache. Oh yeah. Huh.
And the males can't sting. So if you ever see this is not true right now because they're getting cold, so a lot of the workers are working or are sleeping in the flowers. But males will actually fall asleep on the flowers. So if you see them in the morning, like during the summer, they're too done to get back to the hive. So you can actually pet these ones.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen them sleeping on flowers before.
Yep.
It's kind of cute.
Yeah, right now, a lot of the workers are doing it because they're getting too cold to actually make it back. So, I mean, if you want to risk it, you can pet those too because they're very docile at the moment.
I had one that was trying to make my kid's trampoline its home, and my kids wouldn't get in the trampoline, so I had to move it. Okay. And I was able to actually physically move it. So I was like, wow, this is
usually you can just pick them up with a leaf. Bumblebees are very docile. As long as you're not shaking the hive, they're not going to sting you.
I used a cup. I managed to get them to crawl into the cup, and I took him to the woods and I set him out there. I was like, I'm not going to kill a bumblebee.
Yeah, well, at work, we actually we have the hives. We have to lift up the lids and stuff to feed them. And, some of I do R&D, so I don't have to do that as often. but the actual production people will lift it up and they put their whole hand in there. No fear. It's crazy.
All right. And then Will, since you're saying you're probably going to be heading out here very shortly, do you have any questions for Nadia?
Yeah. I guess what is your favorite venue so far? I know you're still a younger business and hoping to grow, but what have you done as the best?
So I've had a few people contact me. I think I've done this maybe 3 times now, where they've contacted me. They have not had a birthday or a special event. Their kid loves bugs and they don't have a specific reason to have me out except for the fact that their kid loves bugs and their kid found out about me and just wants to have me out. And so I literally one time went to someone's house. I drove about 45 minutes. It was a mom, a dad, and their son. And that's it. And it was just, he knew so many things. And it was just, even at his age, it was just amazing. And those smaller, up close, like intimate, more one-on-one where there's way less people, those are honestly some of my favorites. Like schools and stuff, they can be fun, but bigger crowds like that get kind of chaotic and things kind of get lost in translation. But when a kid loves bugs so much like that, I see so much of how I was in that. And you can really tell that they are passionate. They have all their books. They know all their facts. And, they've just never had a chance to look at these bugs that they know so much about in person, and being able to give them their first time experience is just such a cool feeling. So I would have to say that those 3 times where it was just kind of that one-on-one where I was able to give it, I've loved those ones.
Yeah, I would definitely be that kid. If this had been available when I was little, like I would definitely have done this. It'd been so cool. I would be that really obnoxious kid that would try to quiz you on everything and see if I knew more. But
yeah, I have some kids that I'll start shows them like, hey, did you know this? Hey, did you know that? Hey, did you know this? Or they'll say something that's just completely inaccurate and think that they kind of know. And I'm like, well, actually, this is true. Or actually, that's not true. And they're kind of like, what? Huh? And, got to be nice about it. But it's like, no. So those are always funny moments.
Or a parent will try and be like, I know this. And you're like, wait, what?
Yeah. And I'm like, no.
That's probably the even harder one, because like a kid will understand if you correct them, and an adult will be like, what?
Yeah, it's like, but I thought this, or I thought that they did that, or I thought, I'm like, no. So, yeah.
Anything else that you would like to ask? Well, I know you got to get going, so I don't want to keep pressing you on forward.
I mean, yeah, I could talk bugs all day long. And honestly, like what you do for a living, at least, yeah, it's amazing. Like this would be something I would love to do too. I realize like I'm in more like industrial setting, but it would be so cool to do more hands-on and outreach type of an activity.
Yeah, no, I think the same about what you do too. I mean, I think, like I said, I never went to school for it. I just kind of figured, there's not enough options out there for me to do something like what you're doing. And so I didn't do it, but it obviously, what the path I ended up taking ended up working out in my favor. I've been able to kind of make it that. And there's just, they say that phrase, if you do something that you love for your job, you never really work. And I love being able to make my own schedule, but also I've never had a moment since starting this where I'm like, oh, I really just don't want to do this, because I just love doing it. Like I love doing it, seeing all the smiles and, letting people, face their fears and come up to me and say, hey, like I used to be afraid of this. I'm not really anymore. Or, I've had a couple of friends when I started this business say, I love you and I want to support you, but I'm just super not into bugs. So don't be offended if I don't follow you. And, then contacting me a year later and saying, I think I'm getting to the point where I want to try to hold this bug because of everything that you're saying. And it's just such a good feeling to know that my passion is able to affect people in that way to help them view these creatures differently. So.
Very cool.
I'm going to open it up to Andrew now. Do you have any last questions?
No, I think this has just been very informative. I've been just listening.
We have to have another podcast just about arachnid and insect sex. That's really my wheelhouse, and I could really contribute. That's what I learned the most.
Oh my God. Well, I think I've already kind of exhausted my pool of questions, but Nadia, I do want to open up the floor to you. Do you have any other questions for us?
I think I'm good right now, but thank you so much for the opportunity to come on here. It's been great to talk to you guys and just have this opportunity in general. So thank you.
Yeah, and if people want to find you, not literally in real life, but if they want to find you on the internet, Instagram.com/bugs_on_wheels. Also your website, bugsonwheelsexperience.com. And then you have a Facebook page.
Yeah, I do. Bugs on Wheels on Facebook. Yeah.
I have it linked below. I'm not going to pull it up because I think my personal profile is going to show up if I do that. I don't want everybody to see all of my own personal stuff, but it's up there. I promise it exists.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much.
And is there any other ways that they should consider getting in contact with you?
Most of my information is on there, and I've got my personal phone number on there too. If people want to reach out and try to, contact me as far as setting up a presentation or have any questions, or they can just DM me on the social media websites.
Awesome. And, if you are interested, coming to a place near you, if you can talk to Nadia and get that all sorted out. So really appreciate you coming on here. Will loves talking bugs. So this was a great experience.
This is great. Let's talk bugs anytime, right? That's what we love.
If you do end up playing Grounded at some point, I would love to have you back on to kind of have a mini podcast review of it. So let us know if you ever play that game.
Yeah, I definitely want to do it now that we've talked about it.
All right. Any last things? Last chance, guys. Don't hold your breath. Okay.
Some spiders, they don't really have penises, so they have these petty
Will's
real quick, they put it on their pedipalps and then they bat the female.
Really quick.
Okay.
You're welcome.
On that note,
not safe for work edition.
Right. As always, I am Chris.
I'm Andrew.
I'm Will.
And I'm Nadia.
And we'll see you on the next one, guys.
Bye, guys.
All right.